Hey everybody, Joe McCall, Real Estate Investing Mastery Podcast. Glad you're here. This is another Brilliant at the Basics episode series with myself and Peter Vekselman, the most basic guy you'll ever meet. That's a compliment.
Thanks, Joe. I do take that as a compliment.
We created a book, and I don't have the book with me, but I have our brand new DVD. This is actually a DVD we just created. It's called Brilliant at the Basics, which is what we're all about. And there's actually a real DVD in it. And the book that we wrote, we've sold over 1,000 of those books, which that's New York Times bestseller status for me right there. And we've been introducing a lot of people to this whole concept of being really good at the basic things in this business. And that's the best way to make a lot of money, is being really good at that. Whether you're doing typical real estate agent stuff or you're doing wholesaling or rehabbing or whatever, it's about keeping it simple and being really good at the simple things. And so that book, Brilliant at the Basics, we did it. We did 4 webinars. We got those videos transcribed and turned them into a book. The book's doing really well. We get great testimonials. And now we've just created a DVD. So for you guys that want to watch the book instead of reading it, you can get this DVD. And so I'm working on creating a page for this. So by the time you see this podcast, I'm not sure if it'll be up yet. But this is the book. And it's pretty cool. The other thing, so I want to tell you, to get the book, it's freebasicbook.com, freebasicbook.com, and maybe the DVD will be freebasicdvd.com. I don't know yet. But if you want to work with Peter and I, if you go to peterandjoe.com, peterandjoe.com, we'll get more information about that. Peter, on this episode, we're going to be talking about comps. That's a question you get a lot in your coaching business when you're not just in your coaching business. I mean, you're doing 20, 30, 40 deals a month. You're always looking at comps. I mean, it's just something that maybe is secondhand nature to you because you've done so many deals. But what do you say to somebody that is maybe just getting started or someone who's done a few deals already and they're getting nervous about comps? What do you tell people when they're looking for comparables?
Sure. Well, that is kind of a common question that comes up everywhere. And although for a lot of questions that come up in this business, we tend to have answers for, comps is one of those tricky things. I don't think there is just that one perfect source that we could send people to across the United States, no matter where they live, no matter what kind of deal they're doing, and just say, this right here, this source is the end all be all. There are no perfect websites out there. There are no perfect tools out there. But having said that, at the same time, you and I both know comps is an important thing. I mean, let's face it, we're making decisions based upon these comps. So one of the things I tend to tell people is reality of the situation. We as investors just need to know the market. We got to know where we're investing in. We got to know what the values are. We have to know what's going on in the marketplace. Now, having said that, I will tell you just from personal experience, I've been in the Atlanta market for 15 plus years. I mean, I've done thousands of deals here, and to this day, there's deals that come into my world, and consistently, I'm not sure about, because we're all of us live in areas where things change. You could literally be dropped. The example I tell people is you could be dropped anywhere in the United States, and you could walk 5 miles one way and 5 miles another way, and guess what? Values are going to change. I mean, sometimes it's not even a mile thing. Sometimes it's a block to block thing. So there is really no way, no matter how well you even know the market, again, which is what I encourage, to really truly dwell in and understand every single comp of every single property. But I will tell you, the first starting point is learning the market, understanding where you're doing and how you're doing and what's going on. And, at the very, very basic level, even in my office here, and you've been here, you see how intense we are in terms of deals we do. We get, thousands of seller calls consistently here. So we personally here start out with just a basic tool that's available to everybody, and that's Zillow. We start out with Zillow, and that gives us the starting point. That gives my negotiators here in Atlanta a starting point here in Atlanta. But guess what? It also gives us a starting point in other satellite office markets that we're doing. When we're negotiating deals in Florida, when we're negotiating deals in the Carolinas, that it's a starting point to see if you're at least even in the ballpark. It's not a do or die number. It's not a number that you would spend necessarily hundreds of thousands of dollars based upon what Zillow said, but at least it is some kind of a starting point to look to know if you are even on track in terms of the kind of deal you're working with.
Yeah.
Now, ultimately, when it comes to buying decisions, when it comes to moving forward and moving backwards decisions, to renegotiating decisions, all of us come to a point in every single deal where we have to have some kind of a black and white number, where we can't just kind of go with a range. This is a $80,000 to $110,000 property, and so what I suggest at that point for people that I work with, and it's something we do ourselves, is sometimes you have to go to outside sources. And a lot of times when people think about outside sources in this business, they're thinking things like, well, does that mean I need to, let's say, get an appraisal done? And so I got to hire a third party to go out there, to look at it, to measure it, to comp it out with sophisticated formulas and sophisticated databases. In my opinion, you really don't have to do that. I mean, there's very reliable sources available that you could spend a little money with, and I'll discuss in a minute how you could utilize the same reliable sources and not spend any money with them. And in my opinion, the best source for comps is in those situations where you need speed and you need accuracy is to connect with a local real estate agents. And the reason I love to recommend real estate agents is that, again, they're accessible. You could be there's no part of the country where you're going to be at where you're not going to have access to some kind of a real estate agent. And the good thing about all the real estate agents is they have certain requirements. They have certain basic standards that they have to meet. And one of those minimum standards is they all have access to the MLS system across the United States, and they all have access to databases that you and I don't, as non-licensed investors, have access to. Yeah. And pretty much any agent that's been through the basic MLS course has licensed. They have been taught along the way how to pull good comps. So the source that I tell my people to go to that I recommend, and again, source that we use here is to contact some local real estate agents and work something out with them. So, I think ultimately everybody agrees agents can give us a lot more accurate comps that we ourselves as non-licensed investors can get. Then the next problem comes in. Well, how do I get an agent to do it? I mean, let's face it, why would an agent out of the blue just tie up their time and their resources and their efforts and start comping things out? So what I teach people is basically a model that could be applied anywhere, again, across the United States with pretty much any agent, with pretty much any investor. And it's basically a two-option model. It's got a paid side to it, and it's got a non-paid side to it. Now, interestingly enough, here in Atlanta, we use both of that model, the paid and non-paid. We actually have two separate agents we work with here in terms of pulling comps. One agent is on the paid side. The other agent is on the non-paid side. On the paid side, we basically pay our agent $10 because we feel that for the kind of effort that takes for them to pull comps, the kind of comps we need. Again, we're not asking that agent to go to the property. We're not asking that agent to inspect the property. This is a decision whether or not to put a property under contract. Obviously, so we know
you're doing this before you get the property under contract. Typically, is that right?
Yeah. Because look, the due diligence period only starts afterwards. So we're still going to do our inspections in the back end. If we're flipping the deal, our investors will do the inspections. But we got to have some kind of a buying decision, or at least a move forward and non-move forward decision. And again, this happens in those times where we're not really sure ourselves where the numbers need to be.
So it's not every time. Sometimes you'll do this.
That's exactly right. Sometimes, and again, it all comes down to, and for those of you that are listening to this podcast, it all comes down to, can you yourself, with what you have available to you, make that decision whether or not to move forward or not? More times than not, we could make our decisions here without using an agent. If it's a cash flow deal, it's not, obviously at that point, it's not an equity necessarily driven deal. It's a cash flow deal. But in certain circumstances when you are dealing with retail type of deals and you're not quite sure about the pocket it's in, or maybe the configuration of the house, or maybe you're a brand new investor, you're getting started and you're totally lost. Absolutely, I would connect with the local agents, and on the paid side, use about $10 per comps that they pull.
Yeah, that's simple enough. Now, you're in your office, you have access to agents in your office who have MLS access, right? So is that this realtor that you're paying, is that someone outside of your office, or is it somebody in your office?
Well, in my regard, obviously, it's somebody that's already working with us. But again, this is the good thing about agents is there's no shortage of agents anywhere. So again, if you're a brand new investor, or if you're an investor that you understand that that's your weak spot, you're having a hard time making a decisions on whether to move forward, whether not to move forward. I promise you could literally get on the phone in any part of the country, go to any major brokerage and just dial for dollars. And if you contact 10 random agents and tell them this is what you're doing, listen, I'm putting deals together. I need some third-party perspective on it. I'm willing to pay whatever, $5, $10. I think there'll be no problem to finding somebody that's willing to do that. And again, we pay $10. We work on the paid. That's how we handle the paid side model.
I will say,
but at the same,
I was just going to add a few notes, but go ahead. I'll add them when you're done.
Well, there's also the non-paid side. Now, on the non-paid side, we have agents that we work with, and how we reward them is we give them listings on the back end. Okay, so that's the other option. You could tell the agent, just like you would tell a contractor that has to go out there and bid out 10 properties for you, and both you and he know you may only do one or two of those deals. That's just the price that the contractors pay for being in this business. Well, on the agent side, if you're an investor that actually does do deals, that does close deals, that does have potential to give that agent some business, the other deal that you could make that we do with our other agent here is we give them listings. That's the reward for comping properties out. So we actually have a lot of retail listings we do here. So we have an agent actually that has over 100 of our listings right now. She's got a whole team around her in terms of what she does. And that's part of their responsibility, their team's responsibility to us in terms of us feeding them all these listings. On the back end, they comp properties out for us on the front end. So you got the paid model, and you got the non-paid listing on the back end side model.
I think I like, even though I have access to the MLS, I like that $10 comp model, because that's something that if you get a realtor that you're working with, you just pay them $10 and they can comp you a property. I think I was making some notes here, Peter. I think the key thing is to keep this really simple, because you could complicate this and find yourself at the end of the day spending a couple hours every day just comping properties, which is absolutely ridiculous. It doesn't need to be that complicated. And one of the things I was thinking about was, in addition to Zillow, there's sites like ePraisal and express.realquest.com. Again, ePraisal and express.realquest.com. And with ePraisal, Zillow, and RealQuest, you can sometimes get three different numbers and then take the lowest of the three, or average the three as your comp value. There's also active listings, which I think is really important, because when you're looking at figuring out what a property will sell for, it's important to know what current properties are actively selling for right now. So if there's a nice house that's selling for $200, but your comps are telling you that your house should be worth should be worth $220, you need to go with a lower number. So if you see similar houses selling in the $200,000 price range, that's probably a better, more accurate comp. And anybody can get active listings at Realtor.com or Zillow or whatever. So don't forget active listings. I have one more thing too. Another option. I've never done this myself, Peter, but I know people who have. They hire BPO agents to go do comps for them, and for $50 to $100, you can find a BPO agent that will go drive by the house, take some quick pictures, and give you some comparables, prepare a nice little report, and give that to you. That is something that you can do. The other thing I was going to say is you need to know who your buyers are, right? Because a lot of times your buyers will tell you what the house is worth to them. And there's different, cash flow deals are different than retail deals, because cash flow deals, that's just an ROI calculation. So you work from the rent backwards to come up with an offer. But your cash buyers will tell you, many times if you're new in the business, you can just call up some of your cash buyers and say, hey, listen, I got a property in this zip, 3 bedrooms, What do you think it's worth? And if you have a good relationship with your buyers and they know you're hustling and bringing them deals, they can give you not only the comps, but they could give you what they would pay for it, which is extremely valuable. So one more website I'll mention is Redfin. In a lot of markets, Redfin is available. Like in St. Louis, Redfin will give you sold comps when Zillow and Realtor.com will not. Why that is, I don't know. Redfin has always been a thorn in the side of some realtors in some markets. But I think there's always websites out there that are free where you can go and get sold data. I really like RealQuest, express.realquest, because you can get an account that will give you information on properties in your current counties or nationwide, and will also have a pretty good comparable engine in the back that will give you sold comps within a half-mile radius, within 15% of the same square footage, things like that. Helpful stuff. The key to this is to keep it simple, keep it basic, don't complicate it, don't spend too much time on it. Again, when you get the property under contract, right, Peter, you can always renegotiate it if you have to, if you're in it too deep, right?
Yep.
You got to make that offer as quickly
Absolutely.
as possible. Good.
Yep.
Well, thanks. Again, guys, this is Real Estate Investing Mastery Podcast, another Brilliant at the Basics series. Go get your free book or DVD at freebasicbook.com. And we talk a lot in here about the systems and the tools that we're using to close 30-plus deals a month. Peter and I have a coaching partnering program that we do together where we will actually kind of give you business in a box, and we will do all your marketing for you. And now, I just talked to Peter about this, and I'm putting him on the spot. We will actually negotiate and close your deals for you on the phone. You pre-screen the leads. We'll do the marketing for you. You take the calls, and you pre-screen the leads. And Peter, how many negotiators do you have in your office now?
A lot. We always have about 12 to 14 here, full day.
So one of those guys that Peter has personally trained will close your deals for you. I think that's huge. And so if you're interested in that program, just go to peterandjoe.com, get some more information, peterandjoe.com. All right. Thank you, Peter. Talk to you later.
Thanks, Joe.